In Albany, New York, Gallatin would meet Hannah Nicholson. Hannah Nicholson was the daughter of Commodore James Nicholson. James Nicholson did fight in wars, and he was a war hero, fought for the Navy. So he was very well-to-do, and also he believed in his daughters being well-educated. He was not one of those gentlemen who thought that the purpose of a woman was merely at the home to cook and clean. No, he wanted his daughters to be educated, and they were. Hannah was well-versed in politics of the time and also current events. When Gallatin would meet her, he would find a very intelligent young woman. In a letter to one of his friends, he would say that he met a 25-year-old girl who, I'll read a quote from one of his letters, who is neither handsome or rich, but sensible, well-informed, good-natured, and being to a respectable and very amiable family. Hannah was the second daughter of this family and was born on September 11th of 1766, the same year Sophia was born. Sophia and Albert Gallatin would eventually evolve into a very natural love between the two of them. They did fall in love, and Hannah would accept Gallatin's proposal of marriage. They would get married within a few months of his proposal, because that year, whenever he would go back to Philadelphia to continue working for the government, he would catch yellow fever. And he would return to his home in Albany and was nursed back to health by Hannah and the house nurse. Because they were living within the same house for such a period of time until Gallatin recovered, he considered it improper. And so they would get married in May that year. They would eventually come to Friendship Hill. Gallatin had this section of the house, the frame house, built in 1798, and it was for the coming of Hannah. And this section would drastically enlarge the house and would include a dining room area, a second bedroom for the growing family. Okay. Hannah was not entirely happy while she was out here. She was a city girl, and so she was very used to paying calls on friends and being able to see her family whenever she liked. She also liked being able to go shopping, because she would have been in the city and would have had great opportunity to go see several sites. So being out here in the country was a drastic change for her. Gallatin would write in a letter to his sister-in-law, Maria Nicholson, saying that his wife's one occupation was counting the days until they could leave. So Hannah was definitely not a happy camper here. She was not, the Gallatins did have servants here at the house, so it's not like she had a lot to do here in the house. She wasn't cleaning and dusting and cooking. They had servants who would work in the outdoor log kitchen. The Gallatins were starting a family. They would have 6 children. Only 3 would live to adulthood. The first child, James, was born in 1796. Their second son, Albert was born in 1800. And their daughter, Frances, was born in 1803. So this was a growing family. They would have 3 other daughters, but they would all die in infancy. Now, during this time, Gallatin was not standing still. He was not always here at Friendship Hill. He was often on business or doing several government things, doing his government offices. And so Hannah was here a lot of the time alone. And so she was not happy with being here, and she would tell Gallatin this. Everything would change for the Gallatins whenever Thomas Jefferson was elected to office in 1803. In 1803, because Jefferson would elect Gallatin to be Secretary of the Treasury, because Gallatin had made several very good financial suggestions for the government that had worked. And so Hannah and the family would get to pack up and would get to move to Washington, D.C. Now, the children would also be growing up in Washington, D.C., and would become very accustomed to the gentle manners and the way of living that they would have gotten while they were in Washington, D.C. Hannah would also become very good friends with Hannah Nicholson. So by the time Hannah Nicholson would become friends with Dolly Madison. And while Dolly was away on some trips, Hannah would actually host some parties at the White House. So she was a great party giver. However, people would say while they were getting hosted, they would write letters or write in journals about their experience at one of Hannah's parties. And every single letter almost seems to comment on how Hannah was not a beautiful woman. So I always feel bad for her whenever I read that. But everybody does comment about how she was a very intelligent woman. And this seems to be her saving grace. While Hannah was here at Friendship Hill, she would write letters to Gallatin talking about life here. She would write about the children. One of the stories that she would tell Gallatin is that their youngest son, Albert Lawes, would actually pick up his father's cane and would ride around it in the rooms like it was a pony. He considered himself quite a young gentleman. Another occurrence that happened here in the area was that there was a meteor shower one night. And apparently it would flash in the sky and would scare Hannah to death. And she would write to Albert saying, oh, you must feel pity for your poor wife because I was so scared and you were not here to comfort me. And Gallatin sort of brushes it off and says, well, you were fine. It didn't really matter. You were safe within the house. And he said, but can you tell me, how long did it flash within the sky? How long were the lights there? Do you know about how far away the meteor shower was? So Gallatin knew that his wife was all right and was just trying to tell her that she was just being silly. Okay. The War of 1812 would break out, and Gallatin would become minister to France during that period. And he would actually move his entire family to Paris, where they would stay. And it was said that the entire family absolutely loved being in Paris. So they would all stay there for several years while Gallatin played minister. And Hannah would host several parties, and Frances, their daughter, would have a lot of fun shopping and going to different parties. Now eventually Gallatin would get tired of being away from his home all this time, for several years at a time, and would decide that he wanted to return to Friendship Hill. And so he would send his youngest son, Albert Lawes, back here to Pennsylvania, where he would begin construction on the stone house. Now, Gallatin communicated with his son mainly through letters. And whenever Gallatin would return to Friendship Hill, he would find the house not as he wanted it. Now, while you guys are walking to the stone house, you're going to notice that the frame house and the brick house are not connected in a traditional way, not the same way that the brick and frame house are. Gallatin actually wanted them all to be in a row. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. Due to a mix-up between plans with the letters and also with the contractors, the house would be moved over slightly. And so Gallatin there would have to be an addition of about 10 feet to connect the two houses. Okay, we're going to make our way